So our first topic, contract of sale. How is contract of sale defined as per the Sale of Goods Act 1930? The Sale of Goods Act 1930 defines sale or the contract of sale as a contract of sale of goods is a contract whereby the seller transfers or agrees to transfer the property in the goods to the buyer for a price. Now, the words that I have underlined in this are very important, and we'll have separate definitions for each of them. But initially, if you try to analyze this definition, what comes out is a contract of sale of goods is a contract, very important. It's a contract whereby the seller means the person who sells the goods, who has the ownership of the goods. So when he has the ownership of the goods, what happens when he sells? The seller transfers or agrees to transfer the property in the goods. The property means the ownership. Property in the goods. So the ownership in the goods is transferred by seller to whom? To the buyer for a price. Now this is very important. Let's say a person transfers the ownership of goods to another, that is one person. Let's say I transfer the goods to you. Let's say I have a set of pens. Now pens are goods. So I transfer the ownership, I make you the owner, I give them to you. Will that be called as a sale transaction? No. That will be called as a gift because a sale transaction is always made for a price. In this transaction, there was no price that was paid. So, this is one of the important features of a sale transaction, because if you look at the definition of a contract, the contract definition says there should be consideration. The sale also says there should be consideration, which is price. However, the definition of contract does not define the nature of consideration. It can be in money terms, it can be in kind, or it can be otherwise also, in any other form also. But here, the Sale of Goods Act 1930 makes it this thing specific, this thing clear, this thing definite, that the consideration always has to be in money terms, that is price. Price cannot be in terms of some other. Let's say I tell you I'll give you my pens against your pencils. Now, is that a price? No, that's not a price. The price always has to be in money terms. So this is one of the distinguishing features of contract and sale. Though sale is also a contract, but this is the differentiating factor, the consideration. Okay, so now what are the things that come out from this definition? This definition tells me that there is a person who is a seller, and there's one more person who is a buyer. Now this person owns goods which he transfers to him. However, the ownership of goods is transferred. We are nowhere talking about the possession of the goods. Let's say I give you my pens. Now I am only transferring the possession. Only the possession is being transferred. However, in a contract of sale, ownership is transferred. It is quite possible that possession may be transferred later, that possession might be transferred earlier than the contract of sale. The timing of transfer of possession, that is physically transferring the goods, is not that important. What is important is transferring the ownership of the goods. When I transfer the ownership to you, now you become the owner of the goods. Earlier I was the owner, now you become the owner. Now you can do whatever you want with the goods because you are the owner now. So, this transaction is called as sale. When the seller transfers the goods, that is the ownership in the goods, to the buyer for a price. And what does he give? He pays the price. So goods are being transferred from seller to buyer and price is being paid from buyer to seller. So this is the transaction which is sale. This is a normal sale transaction. This is how sale happens in the market. You buy goods and you pay price for it. The seller transfers the ownership, the title of the goods to you, the property in the goods to you. Okay, so property here means ownership. Okay, so now let us take a look at the essentials of contract of sale. So what are the essentials? First, at least two parties. What are the two parties that you can see here? First is the seller, second is the buyer. So to conclude or to form a contract of sale, you need two parties, buyer and seller. At least two parties. There can be more, there can be a guarantor in this contract. There can be some other party, insurer or any other party. So, but at least two parties are required, the seller and the buyer. Please remember that. One party cannot make a sale transaction. Like one party cannot make a contract, one party cannot make a sale transaction. So I told you the contract of sale is a contract, so it will have most, rather all of the essentials of a contract. And Sale of Goods Act has come out from the Contract Act only. So it has almost all the essentials of contract, valid essentials, requirements of a valid contract. Two parties is one of them. Goods. Now this is very important. Goods are required in a sale transaction. If there are no goods, there can be no sale transaction. What will you sell then? If you do not have goods, what do you sell? Pen goods, computer goods, umbrella goods, telephone goods, shirt goods. So all these things are goods. When you have these things and such like things, it is only then that you can sell. A person who does not have anything, what can he sell? He cannot sell anything. So it is very important for a transaction of sale that you have goods, because the definition itself says the seller transfers or agrees to transfer the property in goods. The property in the goods is to be transferred. So for the property to get transferred, you need goods. The property lies in the goods. The ownership is of the goods. So when you do not have goods at first place, you cannot transfer the ownership of goods. So goods are very important to form and conclude a contract of sale. Next is money consideration, the price that I was referring to. The consideration needs to be in the form of money. So when I am selling you my pens and it's a sale transaction, then you have to pay me money. If I give you pens and you give me wheat against it, this cannot be called as a sale transaction. This will be called as a barter transaction. But a barter transaction is not covered within the ambit of goods or sale of goods rather. A sale of goods needs to be done only against money. A barter transaction is not a valid sale transaction. It is kept out of the purview of sale. It's a special transaction which will not be considered as sale. If I give you my wheat and you give me rice, nor I can claim that it's a sale transaction, nor can you. Both of us cannot say that we have sold rice or we have sold wheat. It will not be considered as a sale transaction. Okay. The next is transfer of property. Now, what do you mean by transfer of property? I said property means ownership. Wherever in the Sale of Goods Act 1930 property is mentioned, that means the ownership or the title of goods. This means that the property in the goods needs to be transferred. The next essential is transfer of property. Now, I've already told you property here means ownership. Now, in this act, the Sale of Goods Act 1930, wherever you see ownership, this means it is talking about property, and wherever you see property, it is talking about ownership. Both have been used synonymously here. So wherever you see property, it implies ownership or title. Okay. So in a contract of sale, the ownership has to be transferred. Earlier, one person was the ownership. Now another person is the ownership. So what has happened? The ownership has been transferred from one person to another. So the person who transfers the ownership is called as seller. The person who receives the ownership, who is the new owner now, is called as the buyer. The next point is absolute or conditional. Now this essential actually is not an essential. This is something like maybe. So I can say a contract of sale may be absolute or conditional. Now this is not very important for a sale of contract, rather contract of sale. It may be conditional, it may not be conditional. I sell you this pen, I tell you I'll sell you this pen for 10 rupees. It's a plain contract, it does not have any conditions. However, I may also say I'll sell you this pen only if you pay me advance. If you pay the price in advance. Now, advance payment of price is a condition attached to the sale of this pen. So, a contract of sale may be conditional, it may not be conditional. But the important thing to note here is even if the contract of sale is conditional, it does not become an invalid contract of sale. It remains a valid contract of sale. However, a contract of sale may not be conditional all the times. A contract of sale may not be qualified all the times. At the same time, a contract of sale may not be unconditional all the times. It may also be conditional at times. Let's say I am selling this pen to you and you tell me I'll buy this pen only if I, as an I allow you payment in installments. So now you have attached a condition to this contract of sale of pen. So this becomes a conditional contract. If you do not attach any condition to it, it becomes a simple plain contract of sale. Unconditional contract of sale. Okay, so it may be conditional, it may not be conditional. So it may be absolute or it may be conditional. Absolute means a simple plain unconditional contract of sale. And finally, we have other elements of a valid contract. Now, what are the other elements of a valid contract? Essentials. If you remember, we have done many essentials of a valid contract. We said we need two parties. We said there needs to be a legal object. We said there needs to be a lawful consideration. We said the parties entering into the contract need to be competent to enter into the contract. Then we said there should be free consent. Then we said there should be a possibility of performance, right? And then we said there should be intention to create a legal relationship, certainty of meaning, not expressly declared as void. Again, stamping, it should be in writing, it should be stamped, it should be signed, so on and so forth. So, the other essential elements of a valid contract of sale come from the essentials of a valid contract, because a contract of sale is a contract at first place. So whatever requirements a contract has, a contract of sale has to suffice that first. So a contract of sale will also have the essentials of a contract. Okay.